Hi, Timothy Unkert here. In this video, we're going to talk about the built-in file manager in Emacs called DearEd and all the things that you can do with it. Now, I have up on the screen my website that I've been building along with this YouTube channel, just links to my posts and that kind of thing, timunkert.com. Check it out if you like. Shameless plug. And what I'm doing right now is I'm working on the website through SSHFS, and I'm working on it with Emacs. And I'm using DearEd to do that. So let me switch to Emacs here, and let's increase the font with Control-X, Control-Shift+, and then we can just use plus for further adjustment there. That's a little bonus tip here. And let's go to the top of this file. And I have this file. This file is located in a directory called PDFs. You can see down below at the bottom of the screen. It's in this directory called PDFs. I'm in DearEd right now, and I've created this .org file that I'm going to convert to a PDF and include in the link below in case you're interested. Just throwing that out there. Anyways, so to get into DearEd, the command that you use to get into DearEd is Control-XD. So let's do that, Control-XD, okay? And then you'll see it right in the mini buffer at the bottom. Hopefully you can see this. It gives you a prompt, and I could go back and go into a different directory, but I'm just going to go into the current one by pressing enter. Okay, so now I'm in this current directory here. Let's do that again, Control-X, Control-Shift+ to just get this a little bit larger so you can see it. So we're in DearEd. This is what DearEd looks like. Okay, now to go back into my file, I just navigate with, I can go down with Control-N, with N, or with space. And to go up, I can go up with Control-P, P, or backspace, okay? So I'm gonna backspace up to DearEd.org, hit enter, and we're gonna go through this file, okay? The other way you can visit DearEd is with Control-X, Control-F, so find file, or anything where you visit a file. So I'll do Control-X, Control-F, and you'll see the mini buffer, hopefully you see this. Again, we're in PDFs. Let's say I want to, sorry about that. Let's say I want a backspace here and I just want to go into tutorials. I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm in the tutorials directory. Okay. I can go into the PDFs directory by hitting enter here. Okay. And then back into my file by hitting enter when the cursor is over the file. Okay. Okay, so there's another thing when we go into DearEd, if we do Alt-X or Meta-X and then font log mode, that can toggle colors in DearEd. So the theme I'm using is actually a theme based off VS Code, hoping it shows up good on the video. Please leave comments. I've had a few people leave comments like, hey, your videos needs a little bit better resolution here. That is helpful, so please leave comments if you like this and it's showing up nicely and the font is showing up nicely. Okay. So if I go Control-XD here, I can do Alt-X and then font, and I'm going to look at the possible completions, and I want to do font lock mode, okay, I believe. And so it says font lock mode is disabled in the current buffer. Now, if I do Alt-X and then do an up arrow, I can run it again and re-enable it, and you see this coloration on the top changes a little bit. So that's a little bit with coloration. It depends on the theme. Some of the themes may be different. When I'm hovering over these things with the mouse, you can see that they're colored a little differently when font lock mode is on. So you can toggle that on and off if you want. That's a little bonus. But let's get into what we really want to do. So M will mark the files. So let's go Control-XD, hit enter, go back in here, and let's mark some files. So I marked that one. I'm going to go down, mark this one, and mark this one. Now, if I want to do something with these files, and you'll see there's a little asterisk by the files that are marked as well. I can now run some commands on these. We're going to go up right now, though, and I'm just going to go up with P and hit U to unmark. And I can just unmark all these. And then I'm going to go 9P, and I can do that. I can move up and down. It basically fills in the Control U for me, so I can, if I want to go down 10 in DearEd, I can go, or down 5 in DearEd, I can do a 5N, and I'll go down 5N. 5P brings me back up. So that's a little key shortcut in DearEd. Okay, S will sort DearEd. Okay, so let's do Control-XD, get into DearEd, and do S, and it sorts it. And if I do S, it toggles it back. Okay. We talked about space. We talked about backspace. Okay. If I go and do V over file, let's do that. So Control XD, and let's do V. I'm now in view mode, and I can quit out of view mode with Q. Okay. Now I'm just going to hit enter to go back into normal mode. You can also do an incremental search with S, and you can press equal to see what line the cursor is placed on if you're in view mode. Okay. Like I said, we got back into this file hitting enter. Okay, if I do Control XB, let's do Control XB, and I do a directory name. Let's do PDFs, and that's going to put me back in DRED. So that's another way to do it. I typically don't go into it that way. I usually do Control XD. You can also get into DRED with Alt X and just typing DRED and hitting enter, and then enter again. Again, Control XD seems to be the shortest. If I do Control X, Control B, that's going to display a buffer menu that show you the directory as well. If I want to delete a file, so actually let me create a file first. So let's do Control XD, get into PDFs, and I'm going to create a file with the plus. So I do Shift and the key next to the backspace, so plus equals. So Shift plus, that's going to create, actually that's going to create a directory, sorry. Let me do Control G to quit out of that, and Control X, Control F to find a file. Let's create a file called test.org. And that's going to put me in the new file. This is a little bit slow because I'm on a remote server. I'm going to do Control X, Control S, and that's going to write the file. And now I'm going to go back, Control XD. To update DRED, I'm going to type G. Okay, and we'll see the autosave file updates and this test.org. Now, if I want to delete this, I can do D, and then I can do X. Now, if I want to delete it, I'm going to type yes. In this case, I'm going to type no, okay? And I'm going to go back up and unmark this file. And what I can do to delete it without typing X is a capital D. And then it says, do you want to delete it? And at this point, I'm going to say yes, because I don't need a blank test.org file on my remote server, okay? So now I'm going to go up and go back to dred.org and go down here. And like we said, U unmarks it. The hashtag will flag all the autosave files for deletion, okay? So let's go Control XD here, and I'm just gonna type Shift 3, which is the hashtag, and you see that it marks the autosave file dred.org for deletion. I'm gonna go up and unmark that for now. But I could hit X after that and then delete it, okay? Now, if I had a bunch of autosave files, I cleared out this folder early this morning. If I had a bunch, I could do the hashtag and get rid of them. Now, the backup files have the little tilde. So if I go back here, you'll see the next thing. If I do this tilde, it flags all the backup files for deletion, okay? Like we talked about, D will delete a file without X. Copy a file with capital C. Let's try that. So let's just do capital C here, and we want to copy it to, let's call it dredbackup.org. Okay, we'll just make a backup. Okay, and we copied it, and now if I go into dredbackup.org, and I hit tab to expand it, you'll see I've got the same thing in the file. Now, with this, I changed the font size with Control X and then Control plus. It only changes for the particular directory that I change it in. I'm going to go back, or the particular file that I change it. Go back to DRED with Control XD, go back to this original file here, and let's keep going down there. Okay, so that was copying. You can combine it with a number in front for copying several files. Okay, let's actually demonstrate that. So I'll do Control XD, and let's do 3C, and I'm going to copy the next 3 files to bigfile.org. Okay, and oh, it must be a directory. I'm sorry. Let's do that again. So 3 C. Let's copy it to copied files. And let's hit enter. Let me try it again. 3, C, copied files. Let me do a, it might mean I might have to create the directory. Let's create the directory first. Let's create a directory called copied files. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's go down one, and then let's do 3C. Okay, and now I'm going to go to copied files. Okay, and you'll see it's copying. Now if I go into copied files, you'll see I have those 3 files. Sorry about that. I'm going to get rid of this. So I'm going to delete the directory by Shift D, and it's going to say, do you want to delete copied files? I'm going to say yes. Okay. And then it's going to ask me for a directory, recursively delete copied files. I'm going to say yes. Okay. So now it's gotten rid of those. I'm going to unmark that. And that was marked as a copy, but I just wanted to unmark that. And actually, let's delete it with D and then X and type yes, because I don't really need that backup. Let's go back into this file and keep going. All right, so R will rename a file. Okay, so if we go Control-X-D here, and let's create a file. We'll do Control-X, Control-F. We'll do test.org again. And we'll do Control-X, Control-S to save it. And you'll see there's a little bit of pause there. That's because I'm actually SSHFSing to a remote server. I'm going to do G to update, okay? And let's go down here with N, and then let's type in uppercase R, and we're going to rename it to, let's rename it to testy.org, okay? And now it's testy.org, okay? So we can rename a file with R. We can also move a file with R, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Z toggles compression of a file. I'm not going to compress any files right now, but just know that that is available to compress and uncompress a file. To compare files, you can place a mark on a file and press the equal sign. Won't do that just now. To compare a file and its backup, we're going to use the meta key and the equals, okay? And we can also run a shell command on a file. So let's go let's actually find a file. So let's do Control-X, Control-F. And if we find a file, we're going to create it in the PDFs directory. Let's call this list.markdown. And we'll do 3 names. So we'll do Tim Unkert, Johnny McJohn, and Sally McSchuster. And let's save that file, okay? And let's do Control-XD now, get here, and we're going to go down, we're going to update it with G. So we see that we have list.markdown. Let's do the exclamation part. So we want to run something, let's run a sort, okay? And if we run the sort, you see this mini buffer pops up down here that has this sort with Johnny McJohn, then Sally McSchuster, and then my name, Tim Unkert. So it alphabetically sorts them. So we can run a shell command with the exclamation point on a file within DIRED. Okay, let's go back down here to our file. Okay, we talked about that. We talked about G updating DIRED. If I do 2 asterisks, it selects all the executable files. If I do an asterisk and a / it selects directories. Let's show you that. So I'm going to do Control-XD. Let's go up because we don't have any directories here. Let's keep going up. Okay, I have some directories here. So I'm going to do the asterisk and then the / and you'll see all the directories changed colors and they all have asterisks by them. So I've marked all these directories. Now I really don't want to do that, so I'm just going to type U to unmark everything as I move, but that is something that I can do. I'm going to go back to my Emacs tutorials, back to my PDFs, and back to DIRED. And notice I've changed the font size only for certain buffers here. So that is something with DIRED. That's not specific to DIRED, but that's something with Emacs. Okay, an asterisk and the @ symbol selects symbolic links. A %M, that marks all files that match a regular expression. So let's do that. So I'm going to do Control-XD to enter DIRED, and I'm going to do %M, and I'm going to mark files with a regular expression. Let's look for buffer, okay? And we've got 2 files that have buffer in them, okay? Now, let me unmark that, okay? And we could do something like %m, and then we could do a caret and then buff, and it would mark those 2 directories because they're matching that regular expression. So I'm going to unmark those. Go back. All right, back down here. %g marks all files whose contents match the regular expression. So let's do Control-XD. And let's do %g, and we'll do a caret and then buff. And it's checking through all the contents here. It's scanning through. Let's see if any of them have that. 1 file match. So shell commands has buffer somewhere into it. So let's actually unmark this. And let's go into shell commands. And let's do a search for buff. And we see we've got it marking buff in all these places. So all these little files mark buff. Okay. So I'm just going to just quit out of that and then Control-XD. And I'm quitting out with Control-G, by the way, just in case you're wondering. Okay. We talked about the plus creates a directory. Want to talk more about R. So it does move, it acts as MV in Linux. So let's say I wanted to, let's create a directory. Let's do Shift plus and create a directory called super-js. Okay, and I put the super-js in my PDFs file, and I'm like, I don't really want it there. So I'm going to do Shift R, and then I'm going to backspace to my root of timunker.com. And then type in super-js, okay? And it just went ahead and moved it, okay? So now if I go up to my base directory, I have super.js. So I'm going to do a D to mark for deletion, X, type yes. I don't really want a folder called super.js. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to delete it. It didn't ask me to recursively delete anything because it didn't have any files in it yet, okay? I'm going to go back to PDFs. Let's go back to deared.org. Okay. A searches across marked files for a regular expression. Let's try that. So we'll do Control-XD. Again, to mark files, we're going to do M. So I'm going to just go down and mark a few files randomly here. And let's say I mark those as a group of files for some reason. I'm going to do A, and I'm going to search for a regular expression. Let's search for just something with P in it, okay? So I'm gonna hit enter, and it's searching, and now it opens up a separate buffer and shows me what line in each file has that. So you notice it matches provided by timunker.com at the bottom. So it's on line 56 in the first file, line 50 in the second file, line 25 in the spelling file. I'm gonna do Control-X0 to get rid of that buffer. But that's one thing we can do. And let's unmark these here. And let's just unmark everything. Go back to Deared here. And Q, we won't do that, but that completes a query replace unmarked files. The caret moves you to a parent directory. So let's show you that. So do Control-XD. And we'll do the caret. And we go up to the parent directory. Go up to the parent directory. Now, if I do... the right arrow goes to the next directory, the left arrow goes to the previous one, and I can move through directories in Deared that way. Let's go back to Emacs tutorials, back to PDFs, and back to Deared. And I think that's pretty much it that I wanted to cover in this. I'll provide a PDF. I'm going to change this org file into a PDF using pandoc, using a shell command. I talked about that in a previous video. The one before this, I believe. And then I'll provide a link to that in the description below so you can go through all these commands in Deared. But Deared is very powerful. You don't need any other file manager in Emacs. It comes built in with an awesome directory management system. Anyway, so let's conclude this video. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like as it will get out to more people. I also want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day.